The history of Ireland in the second half of the 19th century is most notable for the career of Charles Stewart Parnell, who followed the constitutional methods of Daniel O'Connell, campaigning for tenants' rights with the National Land League and Home Rule with the Irish Parliamentary Party. The Fenians, who carried on with the non-constitutional struggle from the Young Irelanders, kept alive the notion of independence by armed uprising. The Irish Republican Brotherhood was founded in the late 1850s by James Stephens in Dublin and John O'Mahony in America. The IRB, or Fenians as they were more commonly known, gathered substantial membership but were relatively ineffective due to poor leadership and lack of arms and funding. They looked to their American wing for support, but sufficient aid was not forthcoming. Their failed armoury raid on Chester Castle in England and failed rising in Ireland resulted in the arrest of Thomas Kelly in Manchester. During an attempt to rescue Kelly in September 1867, a policeman was fatally wounded. British response was to hang 3 Fenians who became known as the Manchester Martyrs. A bombing during another Fenian rescue attempt at Clerkenwell Prison in London left 12 dead and over 50 wounded. Meanwhile, back in Ireland, 2 successful arms raids in Cork by Fenian Captain Mackey helped swell popular support. The combined effect of so much Fenian activity in the space of a few months refocused British attention to resolving the 2 main grievances which provided support for the rebels: the privileged status of the Protestant Church of Ireland and the unfair settlement of the land. When British Prime Minister Gladstone formed his first government in '68, he set about resolving those grievances. Gladstone's apparently sincere desire to ease the plight of the Irish resulted in the disestablishment of the Protestant Church of Ireland in '69, ending its elite position, and the Land Act of the following year, which protected tenant farmers from eviction but failed to address the other 2 main issues, fair rent and security of tenure. However, Gladstone's efforts had little effect initially, as his Liberals were defeated in '74 and replaced by Conservatives led by Disraeli, a politician with little sympathy for Irish grievances. Meanwhile, the Irish Home Rule Party, which by 1874 had 56 MPs, grew dissatisfied with their leader, Isaac Butt, whom they replaced first with William Shaw and following the 1880 election, which returned Gladstone as well as 69 Home Rule MPs, with the seemingly odd choice of Protestant landlord Charles Stewart Parnell. The reputation of the new leader, or the chief as he was affectionately known, grew from his most effective use of obstructionist tactics to frustrate the business of Parliament with lengthy speeches, amendments, etc. In 1879, he had formed the Irish National Land League with former Fenian Michael Davitt. In the war for tenants' rights over the next 3 years, he called for the isolation of unfair landlords by moral Coventry. Among the first of the landlords subjected to this action was a Captain Charles Boycott, whose name was thereafter used to describe such treatment. Parnell argued for land reform in the Commons until the combination of agrarian and parliamentary agitation led to the introduction by Gladstone of the Land Law Act of 1881. Although this act went a long way towards satisfying League demands, the Simultaneous Coercion Act to curb agrarian violence was opposed by the chief. In October of '81, Parnell was arrested as part of an attempt to suppress the Land League. He was briefly imprisoned in Kilmainham, from where he negotiated the so-called Kilmainham Treaty, by which he agreed to end agrarian violence in return for Gladstone's public support for Home Rule. When the Chief Secretary resigned over the treaty, he was replaced by Gladstone's nephew, Lord Cavendish, but on his first day in office, Cavendish and his Under-Secretary were assassinated in the Phoenix Park by Fenian extremists. In the 1885 election, 85 MPs were returned for Parnell's Irish Parliamentary Party, as it was now called, strengthening the chief's grip on the balance of power between the 2 main parties in British politics. An attempt to connect Parnell to the Phoenix Park murders was published in the Times, but when proved a forgery, merely strengthened his position further. By then, Parnell was commonly referred to as the uncrowned King of Ireland, and it seemed as if the passing of Home Rule was little more than a formality and but a short step away. Unfortunately, failed businessman Captain William O'Shea was persuaded to begin divorce proceedings, citing the chief's affair with Catherine O'Shea, who had been separated from the captain for many years. Although Parnell's love of Catherine had been openly displayed in public for over 10 years, Victorian double standards took over as the Catholic Church denounced him, and Gladstone faced mutiny in his ranks if the chief continued as head of the IPP. His health, which had been poor for some time, now failed completely, and Parnell died in October 1891. Though he failed to address the problems of Northern Ireland during his brilliant career, his role was central to the settlement of the land issues. He turned the IPP into an orderly political organisation, showing that Ireland was ready and able for self-government. And he made Irish Home Rule the main issue of British politics.